With a new champion balance update, I wanted to make a tier list of champions and explain why some of them may have fallen off a bit or may have changed because of the update. I wasn't sure how I felt about this change since it's been like this for about 5 years now since champions actually dropped. However, after doing some thinking and I'm typing for the script, I realized that I actually do like this change, and in most scenarios it does benefit these champions for versatility wise. Supercell's reasoning was, let's see here. Champions were too difficult to balance for competitive players, while the average player rarely took advantage of it. To shift the balance away from fast cycling and more towards the champions themselves, you are no longer limited to one champion in the arena at a time. The more I thought about it, the more I agreed. You rarely see champions being used outside of cycle decks, and a champion like the Golden Knight really does not shine in competitive gameplay. The only downside to this change is that it's just harder to pair up against cycle decks themselves. I'm a Mighty Miner enjoyer, and I always thought one weakness was that when I go against beatdown decks, if I use my Mighty Miner at the wrong time, I could just lose the game. One well-timed placed push while I drop my Mighty Miner in back, and I'm cooked. I especially saw it with this P.E.K.K.A, Goblin Giant, and Goblin Machine meta decks that just became so obvious. But now I won't have to worry about my Mighty Miner being on the field when I can quickly try to cycle to another. In essence, this really does increase the usefulness of the champions themselves instead of just relying on them because of them being a champion for the 3-card cycle. The big disclaimer I want to mention before diving further in is that these champions were originally balanced in the notion that there would only be one on the field at a time. I've already seen many other YouTubers go over Boss Bandit, Little Prince Cycle, and even Riley having Mighty Miner Mirror. Now let's briefly just go over each champion and discuss how they can be implemented differently. So the first champion I want to talk about is the Golden Knight, which personally I believe got the biggest buff out of this rework. So I'm putting him in S tier. He never really thrived in cycle decks. He's a little tanky and has respectable damage. His dash can be absolutely disgusting depending on what deck you're facing, and I find his versatility to be the best out of all the champions. So why was he never really used in higher arenas and leagues? It's just like how Supercell stated. Champions help with the cycle, and Golden Knight himself was great, but if you have to wait for him to leave the battlefield to finally come back and cycle to him, his versatility is thrown out the window. I always thought he'd be a great champion card for Graveyard, but why would you use him in it if he could never be consistently on the field to tank for that Graveyard? Golden Knight always felt like the sleeper champion, and I can't wait to see what people can do with him now. Low key, I think he is the S tier champion for the buff itself. Maybe not the best champion, but the one to get the most value out of this update. Moving on to the Archer Queen. Let's see here. I think she's good in a good spot. I wouldn't say great because her stats aren't too great themselves for 5 Elixir, as well as the Vines just kind of getting that value against her. But her ability is still pretty nasty. She almost always gets good value and is a consistent threat when she crosses that bridge. Additionally, with nerf of the Evo Witch, Furnace, and Baby Dragon, we might see a trend down with the Lightning, which is always great enemy of the Queen. We'll see her move away from just being the Cycle Piggies and being another mid-range troop you can sub for overall. I think she's pretty good and just probably average. I think she's probably B tier out of this update because the Vine still probably going to be a little bit prevalent after the update. I think she's kind of mids, but overall, I don't think this change affected her too much. Going to the Skeleton Kin, honestly, he always held a place in my heart as my first max champion. However, I gotta say he's looking pretty average for the champions. He never really excelled in cycle decks, as he's pretty good with Mortar and Skeleton Barrel. He's a solid tank, can squish small troops with his splash, and has a pretty solid ability that forces action from the opponent. I think he's pretty similar to the Korean in regards to how the change doesn't really impact him too much. He's a little less versatile overall, as his ability only gets better with weaker, wider troops. However, with the new Skeleton Army Evo, I'm sure he'll get a lot of use in this upcoming season. Other than that, I don't think there's too much to say about him, but I will place him above the Queen. Alright, we got the Mighty Miner, and in my opinion, he definitely got buffed. I'm gonna put him all the way in A tier, and here it is. The Mighty Miner was popular with the Hog Rider and more cycle decks, but also when facing against beatdowns and bigger troops, it's nice to be able to cycle to the next one to counter that push. Along with that, Mighty Miner's damage output on the tower makes him a huge threat when some decks only have a counter or two for him specifically. Having a big bomb to drop out surrounding troops is always a great ability also as well, especially used after taking a tower to switch him over to the next one. The versatility, damage output, defense, and tankiness he has can be used in so many different decks, which is why I think Mighty Miner is probably in the top 3 champions at the moment. Moving on to the, let's see, the Monk. Personally, I haven't used him too much. He's usually paired with the Royal Giant. I know it's pretty good against beatdowns, and nobody can forget the clutch ability. I can't see a downside of this new champion change on him, and I would assume in most scenarios it's nice to get another Monk on the field pretty quickly. I would assume going against most decks have ranged attackers and big spells, so it's always nice to have some protection. I'd say Monk got an overall buff, especially since he's not usually in cycle decks. If I had to say anything, I'd place him right above the Archer Queen. Yeah, I can't, I would assume, oh man, that's tough. For now, we'll put him in the middle. As we look at these other ones, we'll kind of go back to that one. I think we got Little Prince next, which I don't know if you remember when he first dropped, he really shook the meta. There is also a glitch where you could get multiple Little Princes on the field at once, and I think by having him as the only one in your deck. Crazy little glitch at the time, pretty cool to see, not cool to go against. I mean, he offers great damage for only 3 elixir. He can survive a fireball, which is always rad. Although he hasn't really excelled in anything except cycle decks, but his damage output and versatility still offers a pretty big buff to him with this new update. Being able to reliably summon the Guardian against a big push will always increase his versatility in most decks. Personally, I would rate this guy probably in the top 4. Place him in the back to defend and have him create a good counter push. For only 3 elixir, I don't really see how you can go wrong with him. I would say A tier because of this. I think he's just versatile for now. Again, he might, no, I would say B tier. I think he deserves maybe another tweak or 2. But I think definitely top 4. Next is the Goblinstein. And personally, when he came out, I was taking a hiatus of the game, but I did hear he was pretty broken upon release. I still haven't seen him very often, if at all, in Ultimate Champion, but I know he's been good in some Golem decks. Again, if I see a pattern, he was not really used in cycle decks. Overall, I'd say he got a buff, although I don't really know too much about him. The Goblinstein itself doesn't have too much health, considering like the first guy is a tank, as well as the Goblinstein not having very much attack, but the real juice really does come from the ability itself, and being able to cycle to the next Goblinstein while opponents deal with the first will make it much better as a unit itself. It seems to help with the overall beatdown decks, and overall the new rework works really good in the Goblinstein's favor. Again, I'm not too familiar with the Goblinstein, and therefore have always thought of it as a bad champion. I don't want my personal opinion to reflect what it actually is. We'll see how it works in the future, and hopefully see the card grow. I'm going to put him in the B tier. Last, but certainly not least, we have Boss Bandit. A high damage output with the health of a mother freaking tower. Most people have been talking about the Boss Bandit cycle deck regarding the new change. Personally, I think it's strong, and with the reason why champions, it was kind of balanced because you could only have one in the field. But I really haven't faced Boss Bandit cycle decks yet. Personally, thinking about it and being rational, I would say it deserves a small nerf, but nothing huge. The problem with facing huge beatdown troops that seem to do it all is if you just make one small mistake and the troop gets to the tower, you could probably just pack up your bags early. By the time you counter the first Boss Bandit, another is on the way at the tower with its abilities back in. I want to compare it to a mixture of a Mega Knight and Expo. The Boss Bandit itself is not a win condition, but what it does for its cost can be devastating for a lot of players if they can't play it just right. Boss Bandit as a troop definitely got one of the biggest buffs for being a champion. I think in itself, because it's a high elixir champion, it just inevitably will be better with being able to play it more often. I faced it a bit in Ultimate Champion with more cycle decks. I don't think the change will make it any easier to go up against. Definitely top 3 champions at the moment. Yeah, you know what? I think that's pretty good. If I really had to get, you know, if I, oh my gosh, hold up, sorry, my bad. If I had to get rid of one of these and had to say like worst champion at the moment, it'd have to be Archer Queen. I mean, personally, I'd say Goblinstein because I really do like the Archer Queen. But with Vines and Lightning, it's just Archer Queen's just not really in a good spot at the moment. Maybe after this update, we'll really see her true potential. But I'd say the most one to get the most out of this update, I'd say Golden Knight. He looks so good. He looks so cool. He's my sleeper pick for being the most buffed after the rework, with the Boss Bandit and Miner being easy A tiers. Not to say any of the champions are totally worse off or really bad, but these 3 just have the best potential after the rework. Again, I don't think Archer Queen is terrible, but because Vines and Lightning is just so prevalent right now, it's really hard to get most of the use out of her. Anyways, thanks for watching the video. I'd love to hear the other opinions on the matter, so please drop a comment and let me know what I may have missed. Consider dropping a like and subscribing for more Clash Royale content, and peace out, gamers.